Hey, it's Jill with Close to My Heart, and today I'm going to walk you through a scrapbook process. I want to show you the entire process of making a page from start to finish and how my brain works as I come up with some of these design elements and how to use them on a page. So today I'm giving myself a challenge, and that is to use PML cards, which are pocket cards, as the jumping off point for the design of my page. So take a look at the cards I've chosen. And they are our Smarty Pants collection. So you can tell there's a fun school theme here. And what I love about using pocket cards in my scrapbooking is that I can see so many things outside of just a 4x6 card and a 3x4 card. I'm finding titles I can use. I'm finding fun patterns, journaling spots, and I'm looking at the cards beyond their original use and finding ways to use them for a title or any different design element that I might need on my page. So with this pack, you get one of each card design. So for that reason, I'm going to limit myself to a 12x12 single page today. You most definitely could do a 2-page spread. You would just have to look at ways you can cut the cards in half or to have different cards play off on the left and the right pages. But for my purposes today, a single page is going to work just great. So these cards are going to be the star of the show, and I want to get started, show you how this is all going to come together. So I'm going to start with my photos, and I've got 3 photos of my 3 kids on the first day of school. Since I'm using the Smarty Pants cards, then this is a great photo selection to use for this. So here I've got 3 photos, and I always print my photos from Persnickety Prints using the Persnickety box, which gives you 4x4 photos. But because 4x4 photos on a straight page across would fill up from the left to the right edge completely, I went ahead and took the pictures of my 2 girls where I have a more vertical photo and had extra space. I went ahead and trimmed those down and then just remounted them on some white cardstock to let the photos all come in together. So I kind of know that this is how I'm going to use my photos and bring those in to build everything else around it. So the other thing I like to do is just start with a good old piece of white daisy cardstock. So I always like to start with white, and I do know that even though I've got all these different cards, I'm going to just kind of play around and enjoy the process of figuring out how I want to make these work and use something to decorate the background.
Okay, we're going to speed up the video so you can watch the process come together quickly, and I'll talk you through some of the things I'm trying out on this page. I decided, since I'm starting with a white background, that I want to use a stencil to kind of create a subtle background on the paper. So I'm looking at all the stencils that come in this one collection, and I love this star pattern. I think it's really fun for the first day of school photos, and it kind of moves across the page, which is going to break up the linear feel of some of those square PML cards. So I'm grabbing an all-purpose mat, and then I'm going to tack down my cardstock and the stencil to keep it from moving, and then I'm grabbing some Distress Oxide inks. I feel like Spiced Marmalade and Mustard Seed are the perfect colors to kind of match the yellows and oranges that are playing into these pocket cards. So I'm kind of looking through all the cards to make sure that I like this color combination. Plus, I think for stars, this is perfect. So I'm just going to use the distressing tool, and I'm starting with Mustard Seed, and I'm just simply going to stipple through the stencil to get all of the stars in this background a nice, bright, vibrant yellow. So I love using Distress Oxides for this purpose. You could absolutely use any inks through your stencil and be able to get a really nice color. But the intensity of a Distress Oxide ink is so vibrant, and it glides on so smoothly that it makes it so easy to color the entire stencil area in just a few minutes. And because I'm wanting to use 2 colors, then I can nice and easily blend this all together. So you can see you just simply swipe right over the areas that are open on the stencil. And obviously some of this stencil is going to be covered with the paper as I build the layout. But at this point, when I don't know exactly how that's going to go, it's easier for me just to cover the entire piece and kind of make my plan after the fact. Plus, I think it's really relaxing and kind of fun to do the stenciling because it's just so cool to see all of the color come together. So now as I finish up, I can simply lift up the stencil to double check that all the areas of the stars, we're able to get coverage and good coloring. And then as I lay the stencil back in place, I can grab that secondary color and start working on a blend on this. The yellow by itself would be really sharp and vibrant, but I love the idea of mixing just a little bit of this orange because it's going to give it a little bit of dimension and depth to these stars. And so I'm taking the spice marmalade and I'm just simply going across the right edge of each of the stars. So kind of keeping it so that if the sun were kind of hitting any of these areas, that they're getting the same space that is shaded and darkened on each side. So I'm simply just angling my sponge a little bit to tap the right side of all of the stars with a little bit of that spice marmalade. And you can see that the blend, even by just very lightly tapping over it, gets really good coverage and also blends so seamlessly into that yellow. You could even come back over with the yellow and buff it even more if you wanted it even softer of a blend, but I really like how this is looking, and it just makes every star feel a little bit more dimensional this way. So that just takes a second to go ahead and pounce over each of the little star areas to add just a little bit of that spiced marmalade, and look at that result. I love how that pulls in just even more shadows and shading, and so that's going to be the base of my layout. So now I can grab my Versamat, which is the perfect tool for building a scrapbook page because of the ruler and everything that can help you to start your process. And then I'm pulling in those photos. I know that I kind of want to keep those photos in a center area on the layout. So now I kind of deal my cards here. I go through, and this is how I always do this process. I look for cards that have either good icons, so those are going in their own pile. I look for cards that have good titles. I look for cards that have good color. So you can see some of these they're all awesome. It's just a matter of what I think will work on this card. I love the rainbow stripe. I think that's going to give so much personality. And then at the top, I'm just making piles of the ones that I feel like are icons that I could use more like stickers or embellishments to a page. I also chose Everybody's Cool on the First Day of School as my title. I think that works perfectly, but there's lots of different sentiments, so there's different options for that. And then all the cards to the right, you can see I'm keeping because of those colors. So they work really well as if I needed more patterned paper in this concept. So now I've got the colors on the left. I'm moving all of these icon pieces off to the right. Then I've got my title piece and the stripe that I know I'm going to use for sure. Everything else is just kind of a work in progress at this point. So I'm playing around with this card, looking at the stripes. Obviously, when the stripes are all running vertically, then across the horizontal, I get a really nice border. So I love this as the title. I think that's really fun, and the blue contrasts with the yellow so well. But even with 3x4 cards, you can see I'm playing around with the idea of using that other card for a mat. So I'm simply going to take off just 1/8 of an inch around the entire border of this PML card. So it's a 3x4, but then I can mat that 3x4 onto the yellow. I kind of played around with the orange too. Both would look great, but I kind of liked the yellow against the blue. And so I'm just going to mat that. And now I've been able to use 2 of the cards, and basically the second one is more like a cardstock border around the outside, but it makes that title piece pop just a little bit, especially since it's resting against those photos. So I like how that's feeling. I've got a really bold, fun title, and it kind of breaks up the photos, but also falls in line with those as well. So now pulling in that green, there's 2 cards that have green on them. This one that I'm tucking under has a grid pattern. The other one is just solid green, but it also doesn't have very much room, as you can see. So I am going with the green grid. And then I love this page, or this card that feels like a composition notebook. So I want to play with that one as well. So this is kind of my main trick with PML cards as pattern paper. Cut them in half, put some at the top and some at the bottom, and then it works as if you had a full sheet of paper that you're playing with and able to place above and below things that you need it to feel like it's got paper in place. So now I'm just putting a tiny bit of adhesive just to hold my photos in place. Since Owen's photo is a little bit bigger, then I'm overlapping that one so that the others all feel kind of to scale that way, and just kind of keeping them in a line but not completely straight, just a little bit of movement in those. And then I'm going to put this green plaid paper, the kind of grid paper. Well, it's really the card, but we're turning it into paper at the top and at the bottom. And so now it feels like I have a full like 6x6 piece of that paper, but I really just cut the card in half and let it make a frame around all of that. So I like both sides of this paper, but I think the blue, the Capri color, is going to really pop and bring even more color onto this layout. So I'm just doing the same thing. I'm playing around with where I add these, and I want that to go on top of the green, and now it feels like a strip of paper that runs down the layout. It's also bringing in another shade of blue, which I think really helps balance this out. And I'm looking at that stripe paper and realizing that it's just the perfect pattern to bring in lots of color and to kind of marry everything together, but you don't need much of it. So I'm able to just cut myself a 1-inch strip of each of those, tuck them under the top of the paper, almost like you would use even a zip strip or just any scrap of paper. You can turn these pocket pages or pocket cards into little pieces of pattern paper. So I'm going to put that on both sides to balance that out, and you can see just how much color and vibrancy that brings, but it also doesn't distract. A lot of that stripe would be really busy, but a little bit of it just helps pull in all the colors that they're wearing and the colors that are coming across in the rest of the card. So now you can see I've got this journaling card, but I don't really have space for a whole nother 3x4 area to put another square onto the layout or rectangle. So I decided to take just the word Smarty Pants and use it as a secondary title or just a little border. I'm dovetailing that, and I'm going to put it right under the title. And I love that that uses the exact same rainbow pattern that's in the stripes above. So that's pulling in even more of that same color that we need. And now I'm looking at the rest of these cards that I pulled as embellishments. I pulled all these because of the icons. So now I'm just going to cut out these books, the whole stack of books. It makes like a perfect little cluster for an area that you would put a sticker or an embellishment. And it's just really easy to just fussy cut images right out of those pocket cards. So I'm just rounding through this, keeping my scissors straight and moving the paper. That's the best way to fussy cut. You're able to get a nice clean line every time. So now I've got this fun stack of books, and that is going to the right of the Smarty Pants and overlapping my title just a little bit. And so that's going to create a really nice cluster. So you can't go without the shoe. First day of school shoes, right? Always important. And so I'm going to use this shoe as another embellishment item. And I just move it around. You can see I just kind of play with the idea of what I have and how I want to work it in. And I don't have to commit at the very beginning. So that's a lot of my process, is just trying to get ideas and move things around a page. That's why the photos are just kind of tacked down at this point, so that I can always tuck things behind it or add things to it. So as I build the general concept, once I know I love something, then I commit. But until then, I'm just keeping everything on the page unattached so that I can really play around with the different options until I really like what I see. So I love the idea of these crayons being used as, again, embellishments. So just as if you had a full sticker sheet, these pocket cards always have awesome icons and images and things that work perfectly for embellishing a page. So I'm just going to cut out each crayon. They're not perfectly straight, so it's a quick and easy cut job here, just to go ahead and trim those out. And then I'll have 5 different crayons in lots of different colors that I can play around with on the page. So one more, and then we'll start seeing how these can be used on the page. So my first idea is to fill that little gap right above the photo there. You've got the Smarty Pants little title going on the right, and so by putting something up on the top, or down on the left, and so putting something on the top right will balance out those areas. And so I decided to take 3 of the crayons and kind of just put them together as one little image. So again, I'm not committing to the crayons yet, but I have that as my idea. But I do love the Smarty Pants where it is, so I'm going to put that on with some foam tape. and pop that on at the very bottom of the page. And then I know I like the title where it is, so I'm committing to that. And again, using some foam tape to get those things just a little bit of dimension. And on a page like this where you don't have a ton of dimensional embellishment and things, then using foam tape is a great way to make certain areas pop up and not have everything feel completely flat. So a little foam tape under the title, a little foam tape under the Smarty Pants label that I created, and then I'm going to glue or adhere my crayons together in this fun little cluster. So now I've got that, and it can work as one little icon. I'm tucking it under the photo. So again, another reason why I don't adhere my photos all the way down until I'm done with the project, because I'm always working on different things I want to put in areas behind or above, below the photos. So that feels really good to have those crayons just coming up a little bit randomly at the top of the photo. Kind of breaks up all the lines up there at the top. And then I'm going to take the stack of books, add some foam tape, and pop that up to the right of the Smarty Pants piece. And again, that's helping to pull everything together. So nothing is standalone. Everything is working into this one cluster that is the 3 photos and the title piece. And that's keeping it all cohesive and your eye moving throughout the page. So the shoe I decided to put on the bottom right of the right side photo, and I adhered it straight down. So the only things that are popped up are those kind of clusters with the title and the books in the middle. So see, I just take a little image and figure out where else could I use this. And I love this. I commit to this, the other crayon going straight under the Smarty Pants label. And that just gives another horizontal item and kind of pulls into that whole cluster that I have going on down there. So really, I'm looking it over and feeling like it's really good. I feel happy with how it's come together. I feel happy with the movement of those stars in the background. I love how everything has clustered together. The last thing I decided to do, which would have been smart to do at the beginning, but I thought about it after the fact, is just trimming off 1/8 of an inch of the entire layout and matting that to a bright, vibrant cardstock. Just a little bit of that color will help ground the entire layout. Sometimes I like a full white base and I don't mat it, but I thought with this one, there's so many cool colors in this Smarty Pants collection. So there is the capri. I really like that idea. We've got the orange and as well as the lemonade. And so I'm just trying to decide between the 3 of these, which one I like as a matte. And you can see I'm just giving it a very small matte, but it really does make the color pop. Honestly, all 3 of these are great options. I liked all of them. There's reasons that you could go with any of those, but I ended up going with this capri blue because the only other place on the layout that blue kind of pops in is on that composition card that we cut and put in the middle. And so it felt like it really helped ground it and give it a little bit of contrast. So that finishes off the card. Obviously I need to, or the layout, obviously I need to add just a little bit of journaling, but I'm really happy with how this came together and the fun concepts that came from using those pocket cards. We were able to just use 1 pack of cards and still have plenty left to get a title, 3 different sticker icons, extra word strips, pattern paper. Everything we need to build a layout came together by simply playing with the cards and thinking of them outside of the box and looking at them for the different elements that they each contain. And I love that about pocket cards. So whether you're a pocket scrapbooker and you have tons of cards that you're using in the traditional format, you'll probably always have some extras that you can look at and see how you can work them into your scrapbook pages as well. We hope this video has given you some fun, fresh ideas for using those pocket cards. Be sure you're subscribed to the Close to My Heart YouTube channel for even more inspiration.